Let's open the floor for discussion. I would like microphone, please. I have a comment as a farmer, and I have a land. What you have said that the farmer would get the loan in order for the marriage of their daughters or deposit in the bank. This is just a minimal number of farmers. But the old farmer who used to have the jalaba is no more, does not exist because land does not help in subsistence of the farmers. Most farmers in rural areas, either they are civil servant in a local council or trader because of this inheritance. So we don't have the old farmer, and the farmers are supposed to have holding, but those wage earners do not resort to banks for loans because they cannot repay. So you have to have confidence in your own customers. That's the first point. But the idea to have collaterals and to have know your customer. When you have doubts right from the beginning that this is a mean farmer who does not use the loan for the purpose it has been awarded, this is perfect explanation. But, you don't have confidence in your farmers. Thank you. A comment, microphone. A comment with respect to digitization. It's simple. Introduce yourself first. Sora Konsowa. I'm a former UN officer. Concerning the digitization, it's an issue for clients who deal with credit cards or travel or need a bank statement. If we have 5 names, they would send a certain name, and they don't include the surname or family name. If you have 3 or 4 names, this is important to have family name because abroad they would start with the family name and the first name and then the middle name. It's a big issue we encounter. The name translated from Arabic to English or to any other language is wrongly translated. My name is misspelled, and this gives rise to key issues with respect to inheritance, credit card transactions, and the like. Thank you. MP Mohammed Zakaria. Thank you, Doctor. My question is addressed to Mr. Engineer Samir Sheikh. I'm trying to have a loan. I'm a farmer. I have a land. In order to change, instead of having flood irrigation, into drip irrigation, according to government instructions. I communicated with the Ministry of Agriculture concerning this type of irrigation and Ministry of Water Resources. This is not a matter of farming. We can do this, but for all farmers, the small farmer is supposed to have access to loans and have different type of installment. Do you work on this direction or not? Thank you. This is a key point. And then Engineer Sultan Salman, investor. I have factories and vice chairman of Investors Association in Sohag. I'm indeed honored to attend this workshop. I'd like to extend thanks to Dr. Abla for inviting us. I thank you for coming. Would you kindly pose your question? I'm not going to talk the problems with the Central Bank of Egypt. There are many issues that are far from being resolved. The Central Bank is rather obstinate, and I'm talking about the Central Bank. They are rather narrow-minded. They are not open-minded. And we suffer, eventually suffer. The question that always crosses my mind for the agricultural bank, you said, wait for the upcoming dinosaur, the new giant. But these banks, like the agricultural bank, why don't focus only on farming? The export bank, why shouldn't it focus only on exports? Industrial bank, why it's supposed to focus only on industry? Why is there overlap of functions which complicates the issue? When the Agricultural Bank of Egypt, we have a lot of farming and cultivation. Why is it involved in other activities? The same applies to the Industrial Bank, which is far from its mandate. The same applies to Exports Bank, which is far away from exports. This is rather surprising to me. And I conclude by this to give the chance to other participants. Thank you, Dr. Abel. Thank you to the Salim Abdelani, journalist, Mr. Ahmed, and Engineer Simi. Concerning the Agricultural Bank of Egypt, would have wished you talk about a key sector, which is investment in fisheries, which is more profitable and generates more revenues. Do you disregard investment in fisheries? There's even the Ministry of Agriculture. There are no projects in this field. Second point, I would have wished to talk about the Agricultural Bank of Egypt after it had become a commercial bank. Could it be compared to Crédit Agricole when it comes to serving a certain sector as a specialized bank? I fear when it turns into the commercial bank, it would be able to serve the interests of farmers or other. And the elections are imminent, and we know how much that the agricultural bank pay in order to come up with certain results. شكرا. جاكو مسكن. السفارة الإيطالية لدي سؤال السيد عيسى. أولا أود أن أعرف هل البنك المركزي المصري يقوم بدور في عملية التحول الرقمي؟ الشق الثاني من السؤال يرتبط بقانون المصارف الذي أقره البرلمان في بداية هذا الشهر وسيقر من خلال البرلمان. أود أن أعرف هل لديكم أي معلومات عن هذا، وهل تعرفون أي مستجدات فيما يتعلق بهذا القانون؟ شكرا لكم. شكرا جزيلا. أحمد الصفي. And I have an expert. I have 3 questions. The first question, based on what Mr. Ahmed has said, that digitization is essential in order to improve service provided to the customer. Every day, we have the ATM machine, and when we have bank operation, I don't believe there are any improvement. It may take half a day or whatever. The digitization would make a difference with respect to ATM machines. And secondly, would this digitization would start with in order to serve financial inclusion or vice versa? 3, with respect to opening a bank, with the digitization, what would be the period and what would be the difference? Thank you. Well, good afternoon. In fact, my question is addressed to Mr. Ahmed Isa. You have mentioned, specifically mentioned, that the bank tries to provide services within the national regulations, not the strategic framework. I have a point, a big question mark. I work in digital transformation. There is an example. We said you have an ID card. When you go to the bank to open an account, they want the data of the ID in writing. And this is risky. Perhaps there's something wrong in the number. This mistake is persistent, and this would go to the bank and I score. So there are two sets of data about you, one in the civil service and the other in the central bank. How do you resolve this? Engineer Samir mentioned this, that there will be some sort of scanning. There's the electronic signature. A law had been promulgated 2004 with an executive regulation 2006. This is within the strategic framework of the state. So when you say that you pressurize to do so, why didn't you motivate the community that deals with the banking sector? Why didn't you motivate that you would be the means of communication would be through electronic signature? Perhaps there are three e-signature companies, and the stock market took the lead in the use of electronic signature. Last question, please. I'd like to extend my thanks to Dr. Abla for the cordial invitation. I have two comments, please. You have mentioned that the farmer would take the loan to help in the marriage of his daughter. Why don't you help them? Why don't you provide a loan at a low interest for this purpose? Secondly, do you consider concerning the investment in fisheries, which is of vital importance, and the state is interested in this? As far as I know, that the General Authority for Fishery Development wouldn't be under the purview of the Ministry of Agriculture and to be report directly to the Prime Minister. So the Agricultural Bank of Egypt has to consider how to address this issue. We'd start with answering the question. 2 minutes for each. سأبدأ بتعليق. I would talk in Arabic. The banks and the institutions covered by Financial Supervisory Authority are partners when it comes to savings. We have to believe that the mediators in our savings have to economically utilize to serve our interest. We have to agree that Egypt is one of the countries where the saving rates as part of the GDP are rather on the decline. We need more savings in order to finance the capitalist formation to create the required job opportunities. This is not feasible unless we have the policies for the utilization of community savings. These are supposed to be based on economic fundamentals, and instead of supporting certain segments, so the savings are to be earmarked according to the return on the community saving. The more we utilize the community saving in projects that would capitalize the benefit, this would be a benefit of the whole entire community. The other issue that pertains to electronic signature, this is part of a system, but we don't have a fully fledged system. So the legislator or the judges in court, they need original documents. At the same time, we are not in a digital world that perhaps does not need electronic signature in digital identity through a certain biometrics. As Engineer Samir has mentioned, we have the biometrics. The whole world has went beyond the electronic signature. We consider the forthcoming phase so that the ultimate goal is essentially to reduce the cost of services provided to the customers in order to secure financial inclusion. Financial inclusion requires that those who provide banking services, financial services in general, have to work in an cost-effective economic manner, and this requires that the cost of service provision has to become minimal or less than what's available at the moment. At present, we comply with the regulations with due respect to electronic signature. KYC, for instance, know your customer. In CIB, we have 4,000 messages per day. We have to communicate with customers to inquire about certain issues that pertain to KYC. The 4,000 calls, who would pay the cost then? You, we as citizens. We have to be fully aware that legislation or the regulations, on the other hand, lead to a cost to be borne by the user. The more integrated the system is, the less the cost would be. And this would be of benefit to all and to reach the minimum, because so that the banks and the FRA regulated companies could provide economic services. فيما يتعلق بقانون المصارف, the bank federations in Egypt was involved in this respect and provided their opinion that were taken into account. And I believe that there is banks are really satisfied with the new Banking Act, and I believe this would lead to a push, a positive push. There is a department at the central bank that works on digitalization. We have a card, a MISA card, which pertains to digitization. The purpose of MISA card, the main goal is, again, to reduce the cost of using the cards in the community. Most of the transactions in Egypt are cash-based because the cost of cash is minimal. It's lower than countries like Kenya, because Kenya, they had high cost of use cash. But in Egypt, it's low. So to compete with cash and persuade Egyptians to shift from cash-based payments to electronic or digital payments, so the service or the customer experience has to be outstanding and with zero cost. So I believe that this governs the Treasury of Central Bank. There is discussion of legislations, digital banks, and QR code. This is a paradigm shift that shall reduce the cost of the transactions. Egypt, I believe, they have 70,000 points of sale. This code would help to have no less 400,000 points of sale without a cost that would to pay using the wallet, the e-wallet, the smart wallet at kiosks and different points of sale. This has only been announced last week. I believe that the central bank is on the right track with respect to digitization. And there is a point, would it start with legislation or the customers? I believe that there is a good start with the legislations, different directions like QR code, MISA card, digital bank, and reconsidering the so-called interchange among the ATMs. There are strenuous efforts that are being exerted through the regulator in this respect. But there is a lot to do. I believe we are on the right path. I
As regards the ABE, its objective is only not to finance things, but they have to. It aims to fund all the supply chain. Like for example, potatoes we can market for you, and we do the whole cycle. As regards the irrigation and the fisheries, this is part. Fisheries is part of the animal wealth, and we are supporting it. And if you have a problem, if you face a problem, the bank has many channels that you can go and seek assistance. As regards, dear ambassador, we are the central bank, part of the Central Bank of Egypt. So the Arabic name is the basic. So the English name is the one that you put. Just like what I do in my kid's birth certificate. I put the Arabic and I put the English so that I have to make the English spelling is the same, so that when we travel abroad, it will be the same. So the Arabic name it should be as the same written in the ID card. And as Dr. Khalid for the validation between the data that I put, and we will connect what we do now, that we check the client on iScore on his credit history, and we have to check whether the ID is his own ID and the data is correct or not, along with the civil registration department, which is the Ministry of Interior, which is the only source for information on anyone from Egypt. The CB role of digital, there is a management, there is a very good agent, and this is engineer Ayman Hussein, and he works 24 hours a day in the central bank. And the engineer Ayman works 24 hours a day, and I confirm this because he puts some rules and puts a strategy, and we are all working on it. So there is a leadership, and there is an approach, and there is leadership from the central bank for us as banks, and there are certain frameworks or controls that we cannot deviate from. For Dr. Khalid Sayed, the difference between the digitization in the process and the different way and the normal ways, there is an exercise I can tell you in half a minute. The process of account opening in any bank officially, and we did it, it cost 1,035 pounds, and it takes 57 minutes, and then you get the debit card after 3 days. But with digitization, it will take 6 minutes, and it will cost 138 pounds, and you will take all the service while you are still in the branch. This is a practical example that we already did, but in order not to put the ambitions very high, and once we apply it in the ABE, so maybe this would be half an hour or maybe 2 hours, until the human capital gets used to that. Where is the mouse, and where is this icon, and where is this icon? But it's the same employees that did the work. They took it from 57 minutes to 6 minutes. So in order to get the service at the same day instead of 3 days. And you remember the movie, the marriage from an official entity. So once you can get all your services at once, but you have to, there should be a change in the legislation. Like if someone is here and he proves that his salary is 5,000 pounds, so it is pre-approved that his credit card will be with a limit of 5,000 pounds. So I can print the credit card right away if the legislation allows. So the technology, the client, in order to be acceptable, in order for the client to be accepting, and the employee to be digesting it, and the legislation is the one that protects it and protects the capital. So the last question, no, not yet. You haven't answered the last question, which is the most serious one. The question, it's very, very simple question, but it's very deep. Why not the ABE regulate itself, but also work in agriculture sector? I will answer your question that the idea of giving loans for the marriage of his daughter, it's not an accusation, because it's the only bank that's close to him, and we know that our clients are very loyal to us, because the branch manager knows the clients by name and knows them as individuals and knows their families. So it's not an accusation for the farmer who wants his daughter to get married, but we will give him the commercial loan. We will give him any kind of loan that he wants. The most important thing is that he should be committed to the laws, and that he can so it's not subsidized or support. The subsidy would only go to someone because you are the one who paid this subsidy. Yeah, it's the taxpayers who paid the subsidy. Will give you commercial loans for the fisheries also, like for the irrigation system. I'm not quite sure about the irrigation system because I'm a technology person, but I will confirm it and call you back about the specialty in the activity. Rabobank is the biggest agricultural bank in the whole world, and it started just as 100% agriculture bank. It would fund the commodities or the goods and give it to the farmers. This bank, when it started to distribute the activity and it started to be a commercial bank, it became one of the biggest banks in Europe. Rabobanks provide funding to the farmers and also to the factories, because now it's a shareholder in Mercedes, because in the same way it also funds the extraction of raw material and the manufacturing and also small workshops. Also, we have an approach here, and we are trying that the banks do not exist everywhere and they are not widespread, because as we said, the cost of a branch is 50 million, because we have branches and we have the licenses and we have clients who are very loyal to us. That's why we need to provide the service to everyone. The other example, because we have talked about three examples. The second, because we took Rabobank in Holland and Nabal Bank in India, and also the agricultural bank in China, and we took the three examples. We took the best in the three examples, which suits the geography or the demography of Egypt, and we are applying what's best in them in Egypt here. So lastly, I guess the digital identity is very important for us in order to move ahead, and a cooperation between the banks through one network in order to be able to accommodate the technology, and also legislation have to be faster than the banks in order to be able to go ahead and move. And I guess we need to improve the whole system, to do a reform for the whole system, not just the banks and the cash and dealing with non-cash. I will tell you one thing, that taxes, when it started to say that anyone who pays the tax through the bank, it will be at no cost, but if he paid it, if he submitted the file electronically, it will have a cost. So once we say that, it means that we are doing the opposite of what we are saying. So that the reform should be including the whole system.